Instagram, Twitter, social media. So really putting yourself out there. And in terms of design, you really want to make sure I have like to sharpen my design skills to make sure I can deliver what the clients wanted. So I managed a few freelance projects. So that was kind of a boost in my confidence as a designer. So that really kind of helped, especially starting out. So I think freelancing and the networking really kind of helped me push to another level when I was starting out as a UX designer. So my first break was with a company called Fluid Designs. They were a small UX agency in San Francisco. Um, we were a complete remote team, so I was still able to work in Toronto. I did fly out to San Francisco to meet the team, and this was kind of my first take also with learning how to work with other UX designers. So it was a very different kind of feel and workflow that I had to kind of adapt to. But it was great because you learn to handle like feedback, you learn to handle different ways of how other designers work as well. So you're kind of merging your workflows with theirs. And so we did a lot of different projects and just honing in on our UX skills together. And so with Fluid Designs, I think it was a really great opportunity to get that exposure to remote working as well. And it's definitely played a part now since I work completely remote at the moment. And but on like a personal level, I felt like I needed to travel. Like that was just my calling. I needed to kind of get away and just get some international experience. And so I decided to go to Australia. And I didn't have a job lined up. I was on a work visa, and I thought any kind of experience I would have done, I just wanted to give myself a chance to do some kind of design UX experience, give myself that opportunity. And I thought, like I had nothing to lose but everything to gain. So whether I was doing design work or anything else, I would be totally open. I just needed to kind of get some different kind of experience outside of Toronto. And so that was actually what I thought I would be doing. I thought I was going to be farming and just getting that like Australian experience. And that's kind of what I forecasted. But I gave myself a chance to, explore the digital space. And so I did some research. I looked into like conferences, networks, other events that they have with UX. So making a lot of connections, talking to recruiters, making new friends, and learning as I go just to kind of understand what kind of companies are out there, what kind of roles they play. Maybe it's very different from what's happening in North America. And take it as kind of like a social event as well, because it's a chance for me to kind of break out of my shell and um, kind of get a different experience. So I thought that was a good opportunity to kind of figure out what the tech industry is in Melbourne specifically. And so this was kind of like where I did it all, like the coffee shops, right? Like I had to find the job, the pressure's on, and really look for a job. And so this was maybe one of my parts where I was like struggling a little bit. And but this is what I remember. So that's why I took this photo, is just to kind of remember these times that, the stress is on, constantly searching for a job. And so I think it's good to also document some of these hardships as well. And when you look back and you reflect, it definitely makes you grow and kind of makes you reflect on things in your life that, you overcame. And so my first job is with Snooze, which is a furniture e-commerce company. And so that's kind of the office that I had, and they are a brick and mortar shop, but I worked mostly digital. And I loved the team and I loved working here. I was working with the digital team, very small, worked very closely with the product team as well. And some of the things that I really liked was that we also had different vendors and different parties that we would affiliate the company with. So learning to work with different teams, I think, was a very cool way of branching out some of my skill sets. And so this is kind of like a mock-up that I did. It's not on the website, but this was a proposed product landing page. And um, so I did this mock-up for their mattress and furniture page here. And this is where I think I started to really hone in on deciding what did I like about UX? What's the element that I really wanted to take and, go with? So I like the storytelling component to a product. So then it kind of helps shape some of my ideas of like where do I want to grow as a UX designer based off of what I like in my current role. And so just things like that, I think I started to pick up on things that what I like, what kind of workflow I like, what kind of industry do I want to be in. So things like that, I think kind of spiraled out because at the beginning I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I had to like there are a lot of trials and errors and a lot of things that I had to see for myself what I liked. It's kind of like a quote that I have, like I don't know what I don't know. So for me, I need to see what I need to see and I need to experiment before I kind of understand that maybe this isn't for me or this is for me. So I loved working at Snooze. I thought that was such a great opportunity and a great experience in Australia. Unfortunately, once my visa was over, I relocated to Malaysia, actually. And the reason I chose Malaysia was because I do have some family there. Um, Totally did not plan on it. I didn't have a job and I thought I would give myself I gave myself like 6 months to kind of find a job, and worst case, I just come back to Toronto and see what happens. But just because I was already in that part of the world, I figured I might as well give it a shot. And so I kind of did the same things where I attended a bunch of conferences, design talks, and a lot of meetings with design leaders. And so it was an interesting opportunity to kind of see how the UX market is in Malaysia as well, because it's very different from North America and even Melbourne or Australia. Um, there is a need for UX, but it's not as prominent. So I think there was a lot of discussion on how do I bring the awareness of the importance of UX to Malaysia. And so some of these conferences were not specifically with UX, but it was more within like the design space. Um, and then there's one for with Google DevFest. And so there was a bunch of them that I attended just to kind of understand the market and who's in the industry and some of their talks. And so I applied to a lot of companies, and these were the bigger ones. And um, like I was burning out. The process was quite um, tiring. It's not just the applications, but then going into the workplaces and then having the whole take home test. Maybe there's two versions that they want to see. It becomes very exhausting. So I was kind of burning out a little bit just applying, but these were the bigger ones, I think, that were a bit more popular in Malaysia. And so these were the ones that I applied to. And but on the other side, I also decided to create a meetup group for um, UX designers in Kuala Lumpur, so Malaysia. And what we would do is kind of get together, very casual, just have coffee. I wanted to learn more about the industries, and what better way than, like talking to people face to face and understanding where they're coming from and what kind of needs are needed in the design space. So kind of had a bunch of events. And so this was a bit nerve-wracking for me because I'm a bit of an introvert. So just really stepping out of that comfort zone and creating this it was a lot. But I think it was fulfilling. And I think even if I helped one person, I feel like I did something right. And I met a bunch of people and we're now friends. So I think it was worth it. I think it was a great way to also network and um, see what's out there, right? Unfortunately, I met a girl there, and she talked about how her agency was hiring. So it was a good opportunity for me to kind of pitch an email to the agency, and I eventually got it. I got the job. It was for Lion and Lion, so I was just a UX lead here. And so that's the office right over there. And I just thought this was a really cool photo to have. They have like the signature logo here. So it was very different in the sense that I was primarily just a UX. And so in my previous roles, I did a bit of UI or I did some like visual elements to websites, but this one seemed to be just more on like the UX and strategy, so slightly different. Worked really closely with graphic designers on how to elevate their websites or their mock-ups to be a bit more UX focused. So doing some mentoring, guiding, and doing some client-facing work as well. So doing proposals for clients in terms of best website initiatives and strategies for them. So that was a very different cultural experience overall, but I think that helped me grow as a designer just to see what other um, kinds of UX strategies are needed in different parts of the world. I think it's very different in different parts of places in the world. So I think this was a great opportunity for me to just kind of hone in on that. And after Lion and Lion, I was brought back to Toronto in 2020, and that was during the COVID. And so I had to kind of come back to Toronto, and I was still freelancing with a project in Malaysia, but with like circumstances, I decided that I really needed to think about, the stability and the work of staying in Canada and Toronto. And so I did apply to a few places just to kind of start off. Um, Fortunately, I got a job at a consulting firm, and it's I work mainly as like a UX UI designer, but it differs between projects. So some of these projects range from agriculture to financial to the insurance space. And it could be softwares, websites, demos. So it kind of varies. Um, and so the process is it's different as well with the workforce. And so right now we're very agile. So we do things very quickly. We try to get changes in very quickly. The developers have to really do have their sprints done. And so we want to make sure that everything is set for the client. And on the flip side, I also do part-time mentorship with CareerFoundry. So currently have 20 plus students. And what I guess as a mentor is I want to make sure the students are ready to apply for jobs, that they're skilled and they're ready to start applying for UX jobs and their portfolio is job ready. And so I think just looking back on my career, I feel like this is kind of like a full circle moment, just seeing, the progression as I got to a certain state. And now it's kind of like I'm helping teach students. So I think it's very fulfilling And it kind of brings me back to like how I first started. And there is struggle there. There was struggle for me, at least, that starting out, it was, like a lot of trials and errors, but I think eventually you grow and you kind of learn what you like, and you learn to try new things, and you see what works for you. And so that's um that's kind of like my story of how I started with UX design and some of the things that I went through. And these are just my experiences. I think it's gonna differ from person to person, but that's essentially how I kind of got started in UX, was just a bit of dabbling around and trying new things. And I think networking and freelancing really kind of pushed me to a different level. So I think that's always helpful, I think, when you're starting out, just to kind of learn some new skills that will be helpful for you in the future, and make the connections, because you never know. Like some of my freelance projects I got from like connections from places I've worked, or friends, or people I might have met at meetups. So you never know. So I think just kind of setting the grounds, and maybe even down the future they might ask for some help. So that's kind of my story. Um, were there any questions?
Do we have any questions for Candice? By the way, thank you so much for speaking, Candice. That was
Yeah,
awesome.
no problem. Sorry,
Yeah.
it's a bit short on my end.
Yeah, it's okay. I thought it was really important to mention, how long it took to get your first job, especially if you're moving abroad and stuff, because there's just so many complexities of like adapting to a new place. But yeah, I mean, we've had some members here that were like very, very stressed out in a bad place in their mental health, and we
Yeah.
tried to help them understand, like, hey, you know what, this process of getting your first job could take a little bit more than a year. Sometimes people, don't get their first job in UX for a very long time. So, yeah, to mention that there were like stops in between is also important to know. It's completely normal. Everyone goes through it. But nonetheless, thank you for speaking. I wish I could say a lot more in terms of questions, but I have a bit of a scratchy throat. I think I got COVID.
Oh no, sorry to
Yeah.
hear. Yeah, no, like for sure. I'll just jump on that part.
Mm.
Yeah, I think the from coming from school, or if you want to make a career change and go
Mhm.
to UX, there is a gap period,
Mhm.
maybe depending. So like I said, my first job was in graphic design for something that I didn't actually think I would be doing, right?
Mhm.
But and it's okay. Like even for me, like I even told my boss that I want to redesign the website. At least that way I can get that practice. So
Mhm.
maybe you can do something like that, where at least you're still honing in on some UX design practices. So
Mhm.
you can ask like your employer if you're able to, maybe redesign a page or two. And it
Mhm.
could even just be for practice. Like it doesn't have to be real, just to
Mhm.
kind of get that experience.
Mhm. Exactly. By the way, just a quick checkup. Is everyone's audio okay? Are you able to hear Candace and me speak?
Yes,
Okay,
I'm
okay,
hearing it now.
Yeah,
okay. Not
great.
sure how long the audio was out. I heard it was perfectly fine. It could be connection issues. I don't know. But do you have any questions about what was said? Do you want Candace to maybe repeat some things that you missed?
I have a question for Candace. This is Nicole.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. You good?
Yep.
Okay. Hi. Thanks so much, Candace, for your presentation. I'm actually a CareerFoundry student, so it's great to hear from somebody who's serving as a mentor. But so I'm switching careers into UX, and I'm wondering how important is it to know the tools inside and out, like Figma and Sketch and all those of things, like when you're getting your first job? Or is it more about your portfolio and being able to talk about what experiences you've had thus far? Um, yeah.
Sure.
Like the tools, how important are they?
Yeah, I do think they are important. I don't think you need to know like at this moment like advanced level, but I do think you should at least know the basics. And your portfolio will definitely be the thing, recruiters will look at. And so really finesse your portfolio as best as you can. And so with Figma, learn as you go. It also depends. Like when you do like UX design, like the visual UX UI will need the Figma knowledge a bit more. If you're doing UX research, you might not need it as much. I still think it's important to know and have the basics, but it really depends where you want to specialize in as well, right?
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Hello?
Yeah, Dan.
Hey.
Yeah, thank you. That was awesome, super inspiring. That was amazing to see you kind of put a like double challenge for yourself, moving to different countries and having the like cultural and job being new. Thank you.
Thanks.
Can you tell me a little bit how you started mentoring with CareerFoundry and kind of what you've learned in starting that?
Sure. So when I came back to Toronto, I was kind of looking for a job, and I already knew CareerFoundry through one of my old coworkers from Fluid Designs took that course, and she raved about CareerFoundry a lot. So I already at the back of my head knew what it was and had a good reputation in my head. So think I saw someone post on a Slack channel actually that they were hiring. So I messaged them, and everything went smoothly. I got the job, and I started almost 2 years ago. And so it's been really fulfilling. I'm learning a lot and just kind of teaching students and understanding their perspective as well, because I think that's really important, is just kind of understanding that people come from very different backgrounds. So I'll be honest, like a lot of my students they're coming from different backgrounds, so it's in a different perspective. So they're not coming out of school, they're coming from like a different career path. So I'm kind of pivot that kind of perspective and just trying to teach them as they go and seeing what their strengths are, where the weaknesses are, and just trying to help them to craft their portfolio to make sure they're ready to apply for jobs, and seeing what kind of job they want as well, because I think that's important, right? Like I want to make sure they like what they do.
Mm-hmm. That sounds fun.
Does that answer your question? Or
I probably have a billion more questions because I'm super excited about mentorship, but yeah, that sounds exciting. Thank you. And yes, I love hearing that part of it is, yeah, really just helping people find their niche or what they're into, because that is a big part of the struggle initially.
Exactly. Like I always believe like you should be passionate about what you do. And that should come, I don't want to say it comes first, but I think it should flood through, right? Like it should be a part of your day to day. Like you should enjoy what you do.
Yeah, love it. Thank you.
Isn't there a saying that goes, if you love your job, you never have to work a day of your life? It's sort of like that.
Yes, exactly. That's how I feel. It's like exactly that.
Do we have any more questions for Candice? We still got time, so I'm gonna say, for those of you out there, whether they're part of this discussion, whether they're watching the recap, I just want to ask this question so that other people can learn. But what do you think the greatest challenge is in becoming a mentor? Like, can you explain what the challenges were for you, at least, when you started to become a mentor?
Yeah, I think a bit of like the imposter syndrome kicked in, because I'm like, am I at that level to be a mentor even, right? Like, and it took a while. And as a mentor, you're also teaching, and I didn't have that kind of, I had some guiding with graphic designers, but it's a very different type of teaching, right? So um, I I had to kind of do a bit of like trial and error again, and just kind of see what worked and what didn't work. And I would ask like students feedback as well. Like, you can be honest, like, let me know if I'm doing anything wrong, or if you want more clarifications, things like that. That, like, I just want to improve myself, like, for you. So it goes both ways.
Right.
So it took a while, but once you kind of get the ball rolling, I think it got better, and I got more confidence and more comfortable teaching and guiding, and just overall just being more knowledgeable as well. And keep in mind, like, some things that the students ask, like, I don't even know. Like, sometimes I'm doing my research as well. Like, like, all mentors, sometimes we have to like do research as well, and sometimes we don't know like everything either. So and there's a lot to learn as a mentor as well. Like, it's once again, it goes both ways. Like, I learn a lot from my students, and hopefully vice versa, they learn a lot from me. And so I think it's a very fulfilling kind of dynamic there.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah, and about what you said about imposter syndrome, I think that is so common, especially for people who are switching careers. There's always that feeling of like, don't know enough. But I definitely had that feeling starting this community. I got started trying to learn Discord all in one go. I didn't know exactly how it worked, and every time that I ran my first or second event, I'd always be asking everyone, like, do you have any feedback? Please tell me to be better, right? So yeah,
Right,
I definitely have
exactly.
that anxiety of like, I don't want to let people down, but I think your brain kind of changes, and this is something that a friend of mine told me, was just that as soon as you go into a threatening situation, you feel anxious and stuff like that, go through it, because then once you go through the stressful situation, you're more or less teaching your brain to recover from stress, right? So if you have any kind of anxiety or whatever, the more you challenge yourself, the more you put yourself in a position to be challenged and to prove yourself, then you actually start to feel better. And that feeling of like, oh, I'm not smart enough to say anything kind of goes away, because you'll be more or less like in the middle. You don't see yourself as knowing too much or too little. You're kind of accepting things as they are. And you go through the challenges, like I said, repeatedly, so it becomes less and less scary. But
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure, 100%. I think the first few times is always going to be like a bit scarier, but
yeah,
once you kind of get that momentum going, it becomes naturally
yeah,
easier, and you become more confident. And
exactly.
then you can start learning your own like tactics, right? Like, you start figuring out what you're good at, and then you kind of just hone in on that. And like, I listen to like some of my voice recordings, and you kind of
Mhm.
you pick out what's working and what's
Mhm.
not, and you try
Mhm.
to fix it for the next time.
Exactly. That's perfect advice. Also, not sure if anyone is aware of it, but when you went to Australia, did you go there with the swap program for visas, the working holiday visa?
The yeah, I think is that what it's called? Yeah, the
Swap. Yeah.
working visa holidays.
Yeah, yeah. So I did that for the UK, so it's sort of similar, but if people didn't know this, even if you're in Europe or whatever, you could either like go to like North America, Canada, and come here and like work for a couple of years. So that's what I did. That's how I got some experience in the UK. It was sort of like on a whim. I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna finish school later and I'm gonna go straight to the UK. Very risky, but made a huge difference in my career, so I don't regret it one bit. So I understand and can relate with you with your need to go to Australia. It's like sometimes you just have to go, and then you'll
Yeah,
make it
like
work
sometimes
out.
you just gotta do it, right?
Yeah. So yeah, any more questions or comments? Sorry, I have to cough. Ugh. Ugh. I'm not feeling well today, but I am good. I'm still here. My lungs are still here.
To
I
hear.
think I
Yeah,
think
get some rest.
Yeah, I'm good. After this, I'm gonna go right to sleep. I think you man, I think he has something to say, but I can't hear him. Can anyone else hear him? I can't seem
No?
to hear him. Um,
Is the volume maybe low?
yeah, I turned
Yeah.
up his volume all the way. I can't hear him. Do you want to try chatting? Use the text chat, Newman? Maybe we can help you out.
Nothing? Hello?
Hey,
Oh, yes,
hey,
we can hear
can
you, but
hear
you're
him.
very quiet.
Let me see. There?
Oh,
It's
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
It's
that's
good.
much better. Thank
Hi,
you.
how are you?
Good. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Nice to meet you. Well, well, I'm just starting in the UX world. I'm just finishing my first case of study. So what I want to ask you is, um, uh, what what did you? I mean, what was your path in when you was a beginner? I mean, in the not. I mean, in a technical way. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
What do you choose to to learn first?
I chose, so I guess by default, I was more on the visual side just because I had that graphic design skill. So I was better actually on the UI side of things, but I wanted to hone in on the UX. And so my first job with Fluid Designs, I had to really brush up on the UX side of things. So more research, more heuristic evaluations, more some personas. So just kind of merging both of those and getting the UX UI field. Um, and in terms of coding and like the very technical stuff, I already had a little background from school, so I kind of understand like the HTML and CSS. I'm not great at it. I'm not a coder, but I can at least talk to developers. So um, once in a while, I read up on like that aspect of coding just to kind of brush up. But the UX and UI side, I feel like I had to learn on the
Okay,
job.
okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, that's always an interesting question, like how much code a designer needs to know. Because, I don't know, every job is a little bit different. Sometimes you look at the
Right.
job title and it says UX UI designer, and then when you read the description, it sounds like they want a front end developer. Sometimes it's a little bit confusing. So, yeah, not every UX job, I guess, will require you to know a lot of code, but it's good to know that if you don't know code, there's options. I
Yeah,
definitely
for
worry about
sure.
that.
I don't think UX designers should know code in the sense that that's a lot to know, right? Like you're doing
Yeah.
UX, maybe you're doing UI and no code. That's like a unicorn. You know, that like sometimes it's better to focus on one thing and be
Mm.
good at that.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to know, I think, is at least have the basics and be able to talk to developers. But if you do know it, of course, it's like an advantage. But really figure out what you really like to do and hone in on that.
Okay. Do you have any recommended books that we should
Um,
read?
so I follow Chris Do a lot, like religiously,
Yeah,
and it's
he's
not
cool.
specifically UX. It's kind of like a business side of things as well.
Yeah.
Um, so I do like his books in that he's very no nonsense and like he'll tell it as it is, kind of mantra.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like his approach to like certain things. So when I started freelancing, I changed my whole freelance kind of price structure and the way I kind of thought about things to see how he does it. And so from that, I was like, you know what? He's so smart. Like I should have been doing this like a while ago. So I would recommend his book. Just it was more like a business side of like shaping you as like a business person.
Yeah, because that's one thing that I hear just a lot of recruiters and senior designers talk about on LinkedIn. They often talk about the need of like business skills for like junior UX designers, and it's like there is a lot of need to know everything in UX. Like you have to understand a little bit of psychology, a little bit of
Right.
business, a little bit of a visual design, all that stuff. It seems like a lot to care to like for one person to absorb and to be skilled at in all of these areas equally. So,
Yeah, the other book is like The
mm,
Design of Everyday Things. I think it's a
mm,
very popular UX book
yeah,
by Don Norman.
I've heard of that book. In fact, I
It's
found.
good.
Go on.
It's good. I think it was just it kind of helps you kind of put things like real life perspective of like how important UX is to people. And so they give like real examples, like, you know, the push and the pull door. Like, you know, things could be simpler. Like sometimes things are not as intuitive as you think. And so it's a good perspective, I think he draws on that.
Yeah. Who was that? Who was that in the voice chat? Bakalu? Hello, Bakalu. Okay. I thought someone wanted to talk. Alrighty. So sorry for my sore throat and my like barely audible voice. I hope everyone can hear me. But yeah, this has been great. I don't know, does anyone have any final questions or something they'd like to say or share with Candice before we wrap this up?
Thank you. That was fun to hear your perseverance and story.
Thank you. Yeah, no, thank you for letting me share my story. I think it was wonderful to kind of put my story out there and hopefully get you know, you guys get some inspiration or, you know, some wise words from me, hopefully.
Absolutely. And how can we follow you if you got like social media accounts that you
Oh,
want to share?
yes. You can find me on
Mhm.
LinkedIn. It's just Candice Yee. Um, I don't use Instagram too much, but my Twitter
Mhm.
is at Candice Yee.
Okay. No hyphens, no spaces, just Candice Yee.
No hyphens. Yeah, just at
Oh,
Candice Yee.
you're lucky. Cause like every time I have to make like a unique username, I have to put like a bunch of numbers and letters in it. Like my name is just not original. Melanie.
Too many,
Too
too
many
many
Melanies.
Melanies.
Yeah, exactly. Alrighty. Anywho, I think that's it for today. Again, don't feel shy. You could reach out to Candice on
Yeah, for
LinkedIn.
sure. Reach out.
It's
Reach out, connect if you have any questions. Feel free to drop me a message if you want.
Alrighty. I'm gonna call it a night. I need some rest. We got another
Yeah.
talk tomorrow. This time with Daria. She's also a member of our server. She's been here for a while since the beginning. And yeah, she'll be talking with us at 4 p.m. Ireland time, so that'll be around like 11 a.m. Eastern time. So yeah, some of you in the Pacific time zone, that would be like that you'd be like in the middle of the night. So
AM.
yeah, 11 a.m. Eastern would be about like 7 a.m. ish. I think 6 or 7.
8 a.m.
Oh,
Pacific.
okay, 8 a.m. Okay, got it. So if you're if you're an early riser, then please join us. Anywho, have a good night, everyone. See you
Thank you so
tomorrow.
much. Take care, guys.
Thank you.
As
Bye-bye.
well. Good
Thank you.
night.
Bye.
Bye.